Hello everyone. Today I'd like to talk about Keycloak mapper basics. Compared to the sessions that have already been presented today, my topic is quite beginner level. To be honest, I might have chosen the wrong term, but please enjoy it as a continuation of your coffee break. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Takahiro Inoue. I work as solution architect at Red Hat Japan. Basically, I'm in technical pre-sales. As for my relationships with Keycloak, I help introduce Keycloak and provide technical support during system integration. This term agenda aimed at beginners, I'll be talking about a topic that often comes up when I introduce Keycloak to customers. I hope it would be helpful for those who are new to using Keycloak. Here's today's agenda. First, I'll explain why mappers are important in Keycloak. Then, I'll walk you through the three main types of mappers: user federation mappers, identify provider mappers, and protocol mappers. Finally, I'll show you how to easily evaluate tokens using the Keycloak admin console. Let's talk about what a mapper is. A mapper in Keycloak is used to retrieve user information from LDAP or OIDC providers, transform attributes as needed, and pass that information to users or clients via tokens. Here are the main types of mappers. When integrating user information from LDAP or Active Directory, we use user federation mappers. When integrating with external OpenID providers, we use identify provider mappers. Identify provider mappers can also be used with some IdPs to include user information stored in Keycloak into ID tokens or access tokens. We use protocol mappers. Ask quick. Okay, protocol mappers can also control which claims are included in the response from the user info endpoint. Now, let's look at user federation mapper. As I mentioned earlier, these are used when integrating with LDAP or Active Directory via user federation. In the user federation process, a user logs in and LDAP bind is performed and attributes are retrieved from the LDAP server. Then through the user federation mapper, the user information is mapped into Keycloak and a token is issued. When you configure a user federation provider and go to the mappers tab, you'll see that several mappers are pre-configured by default. These are automatically set up by Keycloak based on a common LDAP scheme. Sometimes the default user federation mapper in Keycloak and enough. These mappers are based on standard LDAP schemes, but real-world or real SI LDAP environments often differ. For example, a customer might store email addresses in a custom attribute like mail primary instead of the usually mail, or maybe their department names are stored under OU instead of department. In such cases, you need to create or modify mappers manually to align with their actual schemes. This means specifying the correct LDAP attribute's name and mapping it to the desired Keycloak user attribute. This ensures the user data is correctly retrieved, displayed, and optionally included in tokens. So always review their default mappers and adjust them to match your customer's environment. Next, identify provider mappers. It's used to when integrating with external OpenID Connect or some identifier providers. When a user authentication with an external IdP, the IDOP returns a token or assertion to Keycloak at a point. OP authentication, provider map, and provide mappers attributes included in a token, such as email or name, to Keycloak's internal user attribute. For example, you can map preferred username from OP to username in Keycloak, or convert a group claims into role assigned within Keycloak. This mapping process updates that user's information stored in Keycloak accordingly. When you are at an identifier provider in Keycloak, several identifier provider mappers are automatically configured by default, like user federation mapper. These serve as initial mapping to convert standard claims from OpenID Connect or SAML into Keycloak user attributes. Just like user federation, when you're at an identifier provider in Keycloak, a set of default mappers is automatically configured. However, these defaults don't always match the structure of the external IdP, like if group or do not ask query level. Okay? If your group or role information is provided in a nested format or through custom claims, you will need to create custom mappers to handle those cases properly. That's why it's important to inspect the actual token or SAML assertion returned by the IdP and adjust or add mappers so that the correct information is imported into Keycloak. Last, protocol mapper. When user logs into Keycloak and is redirected to run an application below LDAP, Keycloak generates an ID token or access token. So protocol mapper looks at user information and roles stored in Keycloak and controls which attributes are included in the token and how they are represented. Or for example, it can take a user attribute like department and issued it in a token as custom department, or include the user's roles in a roles claim. One important point, if you want to include LDAP attributes in a token, you must first bring them into Keycloak using a user federation mapper and then use a protocol mapper to expose them in a token. Also note that the mapper settings were consolidated under client scope starting before Keycloak version 17 or 18 maybe. Next, let me explain how to configure protocol mappers by choosing between from predefined mappers and by configuration. Predefined mappers are a convenient way to quickly set up a commonly used attributes. For example, if you want to include a user's role as a roles claim in a token or expose attribute like email or username, predefined mappers let you do this in just a few clicks. On the other hand, a manual configuration is used when you need more flexibility to define custom attributes. For instance, if you ever imported a department attribute from LDAP and want to output it as custom department in a token, or if you only want to include a certain attribute in an ID token, but not the access token, the manual setup is required. So protocol mapper is a built-in feature that can typically be configured through the Keycloak GUI. However, if you need a more advanced control, such as converting an attribute value, you'll need to implement a custom mapper. For example, suppose you want to map a user department attribute from A to X in a token output. This kind of conditional transformation can be done with the built-in options. To achieve this, you can implement a custom protocol mapper in Java or JavaScript by extending, for Java, abstract or OIDC mapper class provided by Keycloak. Using this class, you can freely control the logic of how claims are added to tokens during generation. This allows you to transform values imported from LDAP or external IdPs into the format your application requires. Once implemented, the custom mapper can be packaged as a jar file and developed to your Keycloak instance. So finally, let me introduce a very useful feature in Keycloak called Evaluate. This tool allows you to simulate how a token will be generated based on a given client scope. With this feature, you can select any user and client and preview the actual ID token and access token contents. Yeah, that's it for my presentation. Thank you.